Trudeau's ski buddy says no to a public inquiry on foreign interference. This is the Great White North Report. So David Johnston came out yesterday as the special rapporteur into the foreign interference claims that have been made into our general elections and into Canadian politics at large. And he came out and expressed that there will be no public inquiry on the foreign interference. So Justin Trudeau said government will follow the recommendation and not call an inquiry. Well, of course not. This benefits the Trudeau government immensely. This is exactly what I predicted. What happened? There will be no public inquiry because they're going to hide behind closed doors. So David Johnston, who is Trudeau's ski buddy, cottage neighbor, their kids played together growing up and whatnot, and David Johnston is a career politician. But I think Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party, he summed it up beautifully in his own words.
Unfortunately, there's no common sense in Justin Trudeau's Ottawa. We see today that his ski buddy, cottage neighbor, family friend, and member of the Beijing-financed Trudeau Foundation came out and did exactly what I predicted, helped Trudeau cover up the influence by Beijing.
So it's no surprise that he did this. He recommended against calling a public inquiry into foreign interference in Canadian politics. His decision comes after all opposition parties have called for an inquiry and after the government itself said it would support one if Johnston recommended it. Is Johnston going to throw his buddy under the bus? Probably not. He stated, when I began this process, I thought I would come to the same conclusion, that I would recommend a public inquiry. While it would have been an easy choice, it would not have been the correct one. So again, backstory, he was appointed by Trudeau as Special Rapporteur on Foreign Interference in March in response to the furor over Chinese government interference, and has spent the last 2 months reviewing documents and interviewing policymakers. He defended his impartiality in response to attacks from Conservative leader Poilievre, citing Johnston's relationship with the Trudeau family and the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation. That's right, he used to be a chairman there. In his report, he did find serious shortcomings in the way intelligence is communicated and processed from security agencies through the government. He'll continue his work as rapporteur through to October by holding hearings to find ways to fix these shortcomings. He said he'll produce a second report later this year. The public process should focus on strengthening Canada's capacity to detect, deter, and counter foreign intelligence into our elections and the threat such interference represents to our democracy. Well, one way we can do that is have a foreign agent registry and also minimize the risk by simply closing more Chinese consulates in our country. Remember, they're also operating Chinese police stations. Some of them, the one in Quebec, was even funded with taxpayer money. So Johnston said he found no ethical fault with the way the federal government handled foreign interference. He found that the narrative that the government failed to act is not a fair, conclusive based on the facts. However, the machinery of government needs significant improvement to address the evolving threat of foreign interference. Obviously, we have too much government. We need to trim down our government and get rid of all the in-betweens. For a report to go from our intelligence services, how many people does it need to go through before it sees the Prime Minister's office? You remember, every time they hand a report over and it goes through so many hands, they will look at it and see what's important, what he should see. So Johnston asked the National Security and Intelligence Review Agency, an independent government agency, and the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, a joint parliamentary committee, to review his conclusions. Okay, that's a lot of words. So it's 5 conclusions. Foreign governments are attempting to influence political candidates and voters, and that more needs to be done in combat these attempts. Much of media reporting on foreign interference raised legitimate questions, but did not have full context, and as a result was misconstrued by journalists. Serious shortcomings in how security agencies relay information to the government. There's no evidence that the Prime Minister or his ministers knowingly failed to act on intelligence advice and recommendations. Process other than a public inquiry is required to examine foreign interference, including public hearings on the issues the report has identified. Conclusions of the report should go to the NSIRA and the NCICOP for review, and that these bodies should report publicly if they reach different conclusions. So basically, we're going to stay the course. Nothing's going to really get done. So Trudeau sent letters to other party leaders offering to get them security clearances so they can review the intelligence Johnston accessed and putting together a report. How much of that is redacted, I wonder. So the Globe and Mail definitely, and the Global News, have reported on this influence and interference operations from Beijing, particularly during 2019-21. They obviously have a source in the government. Whether that source is legitimate or not remains to be seen. And Johnston admitted that it's real, and Ottawa should address it. So he found that the media reporting on the issue was misconstrued. Well, we don't know their source. And the RCMP is investigating the source of the leaks. Johnston thinks that the sensitivity of the intelligence would create difficulties for a public inquiry, and the fact that he found the government did not commit any wrongdoing weakens the case for an inquiry. So basically, Johnston's asking Canadians to trust him in Parliament. Now that the public inquiry is off the table, but the argument is obviously not over. It's going to go behind closed doors now. The opposition parties, if they so choose, can look at all the documentation and find out. But he's asking a lot from the Canadian public. Because this story broke open, it's probably better for a public inquiry. So what happens next? It goes behind closed doors. The opposition parties will have a chance to look at the documentation that Johnston himself looked at, and they'll have to make their own conclusions. In the meantime, we'll be left in the dark, at least until his next report come October, which is what? 5 months away. Will we ever get to the bottom of this? I highly doubt it. But I, for one, do not trust any politicians, even Poilievre. You take what you want from him with a grain of salt. With any politician, you take anything they say with a grain of salt. But at the same time, do I trust Trudeau and the Liberals? No. Do I trust Johnston? Unfortunately, not entirely. He has impeccable credentials as far as politics go, but he's also too close to the Trudeau family, and that made him suspect. They should have chosen someone else, but it was an old family friend. So should we trust them in Parliament? No, it should have been a public inquiry, get it all off the table, and we should go through with the Foreign Registry Act. The United States has one, why can't we? Why do we have to wait until something bad happens? And it is time to seriously limit the Chinese Communist Party's influence in our own country. Any Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think of the Johnston's recommendations. Should there have been a public inquiry, or do you believe it should be behind closed doors? Leave comments in the comments section. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.